John B is in the house. What's up, Richard? Hi, Jordan. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Cade. Big Mix. How is everybody doing? Well, big ol' what's up, YouTube? How's everyone doing today? Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Lawn and Garden Show, the Lawn Care Help Desk. Those of you tuning in for the first time, my name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor. Martin. See some names that are awfully familiar to me, Pardon. Audio's a little silly Sally coming in on different parts of my ears here. Microphone's such a way to. I got all kinds of silliness going on here. All right, we have officially burned through that, so I'm going to pull up my normal soundboard so I have access to my dub horn. The favorite thing about this board, and that's the only reason I bought it, was because I wanted a dub horn somewhere throughout the course of the day. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, like I said, this is going to be primarily about lawn care. My background is turf grass management, but pretty quick into my career, I got into lawn care, and I've been in it since. I never did really find my way out of it. And one of the things that was always real shocking to me was how overwhelmed I was with lawn care, thinking it would be like golf. And it's not anything like golf at all. So I made a commitment to myself that I was going to learn any and everything I possibly could about lawn care. And so you are experiencing my lifelong journey here. It is a never-ending journey because every day I learn something new. That's the most beautiful thing about this industry. That's why I'm involved with it the way I am, is because it is a never-ending quest for knowledge. And that's where I like to be. It keeps me entertained. It keeps me motivated. It keeps my mind right. It keeps me from getting bored and doing things I shouldn't be doing. The way this show works is it is a viewer-run format, meaning you ask questions, I will provide answers to the best of my ability. Please understand, I am human. I am fallible. I will make mistakes. I ask you to keep that in your mind. There are often times I may misspeak while I'm talking, and I may say cool season grass when I'm intended to say warm season grass. Please, if you're unsure, consult with me or verify. Double check Cameron Stevens. Unnecessary, sir. I want to give a big shout out to Sandman's Dreamland, who was the first one in here. He said he was first, then followed by Mr. John Benefield, the beneficiary, the benevolent Johnny B. David Hensel is here. What's up, Mr. Nettles? Terry Finch is on fire, baby. This is hot down there in Centipede World. Ooh. J Farm is in the house. What's up, big dude? We got Dan, the man, all over the plan. Yeah, it was horrible. Why did I say that? What's going on, Schaefer, Lawn Care and Property Maintenance? Kyle Hill, Cade Carter, Big Vix. Are you into volatility, sir, with that Big Vix? Ricky Smith, I'm sorry, from Cola, South Carolina. Jesse Snow, Shane Brady. Oh, by the way, we're in the middle of the roll call. Bermuda Lawn, North Carolina, Brett Finkel, Cameron Stevens, Sean's Midwest Lawn, Kevin Shepard, Nicholas Jasmine, Steve Wright, James Frueh, City Turf Pro. What's up, dude? I'm not going to restart my computer now like I was just asked to do. Jim Keene. Man, look at all these names I recognize here. This is awesome. Awesome. I didn't realize I could scroll up and down on this monitor over here. I'm gonna continue doing that because that works. So, like I said, the way this works is you ask questions, I will provide answers. I will answer questions until we run out of questions to answer. That's how I like to do things. I want to offer up a bit of what I've learned and share it with you. All right, so I'm going to make my way down here. The first question I saw was from Cade Carter. He said, let's talk P and K sources. When to use which, benefits, potential drawbacks, etc. Let's get sciencey with it. Okay, so in terms of P sources, you kind of got a lot of options. And the way I usually look for a P source would, one, be determined by the pH of my soil, right? Because in higher pHs, the faster or the higher the probability of that phosphorus becoming tied up with another element is very high. For instance, high pH soils typically are high in Cal or Mag, and that will desolubilize your phosphorus. If it's insoluble, it's not plant available. And where that becomes critical is during the time of seed establishment. If you're dealing with high pH soils, one of the best ways to protect it would be to apply it along in one of the ammoniacal forms. For instance, monoammonium phosphate, MAP, is kind of the general standard Cadillac of P sources. Unless you feel like applying straight phosphoric acid. You'd have to do some dilution there because it's not wise to apply straight phosphoric acid, but it is doable. Understand that it will react with your Cal and others too to precipitate out. So just keep that in the back of your mind. MAP is usually where people go. Now, there's super triple phosphate. There's all kinds of different phosphates you can go for. You can get organic rock phosphate, you name it. It's all out there. But the reality of the situation is what it all comes down to is when it's soluble and how long it will remain soluble and how long it will remain plant available, especially during seed establishment. If it's not during seed establishment, then pretty much pick your poison on your P source and just run with it. Because it's not that imperative then. The plant will have a natural way to solubilize that phosphorus and bring it in. It's through the root system called exudation. That's where the root system is going to release acids in high pH soil to solubilize the P to bring it in. Or what's very bizarre is that in extremely acidic soil, it'll actually release alkaline amino acids or amino acids in alkaline solutions to draw it in. It's a crazy thing. The rhizosphere is a weird freaking place for plants. I'm telling you. But that's how they handle these things. So when it comes to P, understand monoammonium phosphate is protected by hydrogen, by acidity, and therefore is going to have the longest instance of availability. Now, with diammonium phosphate, you're going to have naturally a little higher what's the word I'm looking for? Higher nitrogen content with it. So when you're talking about monoammonium phosphate, you're talking about 1152.0. When you're talking about diammonium phosphate, that's an 1846.0. The issue is that even though you're talking about two ammoniacal portions of it, it does not have the same level of P protection that MAP does. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you have acidic soil, diammonium phosphate may be better for you because it's cheaper. If you have alkaline soil, MAP would be better for you. Just understand it's more expensive. It's the Cadillac, so to speak. When we're talking about K-sources, there's a few different options, and really what you have to ask yourself, is it going to be foliar or is it going to be granular? In the granular form, you can apply potassium phosphate, which is going to give you soluble phosphorus plus potassium. Who is it? My buddy Chris turned me on to the product from Haifa, which is called MKP, monopotassium phosphate. And that it's no nitrogen, high in both phosphorus and potassium. It's like a 0.5230 or something like that. Something bizarre. I can't remember off the top of my head. That's a good source. It's not super soluble in water. Sulfate of potash is another low salt index source. Potassium sulfate, sulfate of potash, kind of the same deal there. Your cheapest source of potassium is going to be potassium chloride, KCl, muriate of potash. That's all the same thing, but it has a very high salt index. If your focus is on improving the rhizosphere of the soil, you typically want to steer towards lower salt index products. KCl also contains chlorine for certain turf types specifically. There's an added layer of sensitivity of the turf to chlorine. I just yanked my headphone cord out. And specifically when I'm talking about sensitivity, the two primary turf types that I'm aware of are St. Augustine and Centipede. Those are the ones you got to watch out for. If you're talking about foliar, you can use dipotassium phosphate. That's going to be another one. Dipotassium phosphate, I think you can get in liquid form. Like it's a pretty decent rate that you can get there. You can also get potassium acetate, which is going to have the highest foliar availability of all your potassium sources. You're going to see potassium thiosulfate. But understand there's an inherent risk when you apply that. It's an extremely alkaline material. You have to apply it with a very high volume of water. However, when you do apply it, though it is caustic on the front end, on the back end, it's actually very acidic. So I would only recommend potassium thiosulfate in a foliar form for people that deal with high pH soils. Irreparably high, like when you're like where ammonium sulfate and a little bit of elemental sulfur ain't going to get it for you kind of high. That's when it becomes imperative that you really look at making that switch over. Then there's potassium formate, which is the reaction of potassium hydroxide and formic acid. That's going to be very high in foliar availability too. So at the end of the day, is one really better than the other? It all depends on, does the plant know the difference between any of that? No, it'll know. The plant has no idea. The plant's just looking for potassium. The plant's just looking for phosphorus in relation to the amount of nitrogen that's dictating the uptake. So as long as there's a soluble form there, it doesn't matter how it got there. It doesn't matter what the source of it is. Where that becomes more important is going to be like in a foliar sense. So if you're applying a foliar potassium and it's only 10% foliarly available, then you're relying on the root system to take out the majority of it. Versus something like potassium acetate is going to be like closer to 50% foliarly available, then only half of it you're relying on the soil to take it up. Or when you're talking about your P source, understanding the timing of it and the types of soil you're currently dealing with. If you're high cal, high mag soils, high pH soils, MAP is going to be your better friend. So I hope that helps it. I could really probably do a whole show on it, but at least starting now, I think that's a good place to do it. A good place to start. Let's see here. Let's lay down some pasture fertilizer. Went a little heavy too. Went a little too heavy. Seeing some burn spots. Any recommendations? Water is going to be your best bet. that's really going to be the only thing you can do except water. Water, 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 water. In the event it does completely burn out and die, it's kind of the odd thing is, seed it and then fertilize it again. So flush the salt out and then fertilize it again. That's really the only thing you can do. That is really it. Cameron Stevens says, what is your favorite all-around herbicide for warm season grass? Do you use a kicker? Absolutely, I use a kicker. I don't have a single favorite herbicide. Well, maybe. Probably Monument trifloxysulfuron is my favorite. And for kickers, like I'll give you an example what I just sprayed my backyard with. I sprayed my backyard with Monument, a low rate of 3-way. I applied there was a surfactant there, and Quicksilver was the mix I sprayed. And I was very happy with that. In fact, actually today I followed up with it with some Tribute in some spots. Tribute's going to be another good one that's pretty versatile in warm season grasses. Sean's Midwest Lawn said, what can I do to bring down my calcium level? Soil test show it was pretty high. Turf Site Tall Fescue, St. Louis, Missouri. You don't really need to worry about it with calcium. There's no such thing really as too high unless you're talking about you have very high pH soil. So even if you have 2,000, 3,000 parts per million of calcium, that doesn't necessarily mean it's that high. Understand that there are some places in the country, for instance, Texas, like the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you're going to see like 20,000 parts per million of calcium, where the soil is literally a calcium bedrock. So I wouldn't get too excited about it. I wouldn't worry about applying any calcium in that instance. Just call it good and run with it. But it's not going to have any adverse effect as long as you maintain a good pH in your soil. What's your best thoughts on control of Dallas grass in common Bermuda? Tribute total. That's the whole reason I sprayed it today was for Dallas grass. So I did my initial application with Monument, and now I'm following up with 2 applications of Tribute total after that. That's how I killed all the Dallas grass in my backyard, and I've got a little bit of recovery in it now. It's 4 years later. Some of it's starting to pop back up, so repeating the same process, and I'll be good to go. What's up, Mark Taylor from New Jersey? I'll quote you here, Daniel, the Lawn Stripes. I was recording a video today and started to go on a rant about people not reading labels before buying something like Negate, then asking how to apply it. Yeah. And for those of you that missed it on the radio show, if you go to turfsupradio.com, I host a show there every day, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. I was let in on a video of someone first that was using Negate and a hose-in sprayer, which is a big no-no. Second of all, they were measuring out in 1 gram quantities the amount of Negate to apply per 1,000 square feet. Well, in reality, the label says you have to mix the entire contents of the bottle in order to spray that material. And if you have to make a jug of concentrated material, then to mix in a diluted form, do it that way if you need to apply it in a per 1,000 square foot setting. So I believe I worked out the math, and it's something like you put the whole 1.5 ounces into a gallon of water, and then you measure out 2.8 ounces, and that's going to give you your per 1,000 square foot rate. That's the safe way to do that. Doing it outside of that will lead you to, because it's a blended product, not a homogeneous product, you may be over-applying something like metsulfuron methyl or over-applying something like rimsulfuron. Both at very low rates can have tragic consequences. So please pay attention to your labels. Ricky Smith, any opinions on Avenue South? Yeah, actually, I like it. It's a good product there. So mix of pinoxalam. What is it? Maybe pinoxalam, 2,4-D, and sulfentrazone, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, I know guys, especially in Florida, that rely on that product a lot, and they speak so very highly of it. I've only sprayed it maybe twice in my whole life, and it was on either Centipede or St. Augustine. I can't remember. It was when I was in Augusta, and I remember it being very effective for the time. And that was kind of at the time when Celsius was newer on the block, and so we made the switch to Celsius because of the lack of collateral damage, and it did it did better at higher temperatures. Let me put it that way. There was less risk at higher temperatures. Casey, I can actually shoot me a text. I'll have to schedule a time with you. It would probably be like, I'll have to schedule a time to sit and talk with you because I am booked up right now on phone calls through about Thursday of next week. What's up, Ben Weeks? How are you, sir? Willie Lombos, how are you doing, man? Trent Barnes, what's up, dude? Got your text the other day. That's a sweet-looking setup you got going on there. What's up, Mr. Morton? How are you, good sir? More cola, folks, down in Centipede Land. At least it's not Bahia. Yeah, somebody else talking about Celsius there. It's a good product. It's a good product. What's up, Joe C. from Long Island? Love the Drive Home Show. Thank you. Sam Clemens, any tips on nutsedge? Yeah, man. I did about a 30-minute presentation on nutsedge. And I come about it from the point of view of working it as a preventative program. Whoa, I am not meaning to do that. I come about it working from a preventative type of, it's only 20 minutes. It isn't that bad. Type of approach. So it's kind of covers your bases that way. So that way you're never really having to deal with it at all. So I recommend you check out that video because I go into way deep detail on it. Matt Martinez says, how much Dep 10 can I use on a monthly basis if I put down 0.5 pounds of NMX grain? You can go up to 2 gallons per acre. Up to 2 gallons per acre. I don't recommend you do that because the risk is very high at that rate. So I would say 3 ounces if you're feeling froggy, then take it to 6 ounces per 1,000 square feet. But I would try and cap it realistically at about 2 gallons per acre. Big Vic said, an old video of yours, you talked about the uptake, the uptake of different types of N. Regular urea uncoated had an uptake of 33%, and coated urea types had about 66%. Can you explain why I should not put regular urea at 3 pounds per 1,000? You totally can. Why? I would never talk you out of doing that. You 100% can do that. So here's the thing is the variability is this, right? So it all comes down to efficiency. And in your position, Big Vic's, where you may not do this professionally, so the importance of how much of that N makes it to the plant may not be the same level of importance as me, where I'm having to buy per pound of actual nitrogen across thousands of acres, right? Or hundreds of acres. At that point, return on investment becomes a very big thing. Performance ROI. You've heard me talk about it on the radio show. I'll talk about it here. In your instance, you can apply it there because if you lose 66% of your efficiency, it doesn't really harm you, because you can come back in 2 weeks, 3 weeks later again if you're not happy with the results and apply more. When you're stuck to an adhered schedule where you know at minimum you are not going to be back on a property for 6 weeks, you can't afford to lose 66% of your nitrogen. Therefore, you have to make sure it's either 1, immediately watered in, or 2, it has some sort of enhanced efficiency effect or upgrade or premium to that product. So when you apply it, you're sure 60, 70, 80% of your nitrogen that you apply is utilized. I hope that makes sense. Have you ever used a Lesco with a Permagreen agitator to spread sand? Does it work? I have never done that. I would assume as long as it's dry, you should be good. Hang on, I got the corona. Okay. Yeah, I never have. If it's dry enough, it should flow no problem. The more moisture it has, the more it's going to rat hole, and you'll run into flowability issues. Gary Evans said, we only had 3 days in the 80s, and I have 4 spots in the lawn where the RTF is needling. No debris under the grass, so I can't figure out why it is under stress already. Already irrigating. You may not have good irrigation coverage there if you got 4 spots where it's needling. That's just kind of my guess. You say no debris under the grass, so what I would do is I would check and see if you feel moisture in those spots. And you know, you may have to do what we call a syringing, where you get out there with the water hose and actually water down that spot, especially if it has become hydrophobic in that spot. If it dries out, hydrophobicity in the soil is a very real thing, where all of a sudden there'll be pockets that ignore water infiltration, and water will actually divert around it. And if you got a root mass there, it could be suffering where it can't pick up any moisture. So my recommendation there would either be hand water those areas and see how it responds. If it responds well, then you know that's the case. You may just have to touch it up or do a little irrigation adjustment. If it doesn't, then you've got some sort of different issue that's inhibiting the uptake of water. And probably what I would look at doing at that point would be applying something like a wetting agent to help in that. Heat doesn't always equate with dry dirt, right? It's all about rainfall. So if you've got 4 spots in the lawn and it's only 3 days in the 80s, it's not really telling me anything. I've seen drought-stressed grass at 37 degrees before. It can exist. So the needling is a symptom of water, not heat. I'm putting in raised beds for clients. Peat, coir, perlite, compost. How much X-soil should I mix per cubic yard? Per cubic yard, I would probably throw in maybe like half a bag, something like that. Larry George, hey, there you go. When adding a kicker to the tank, what rate do you go with? It depends on the active ingredient, Mark. So if I'm adding a PPOI to a synthetic auxin, I'll go ahead and run a full rate of the synthetic auxin, and I will add my limiting rate of the PPOI. So I look at it from the standpoint of which one is going to be the thunder, right? So if I'm adding triclopyr, then I know the 3-way ester is going to control the broadest spectrum of the weeds. I know triclopyr added to it is what's going to give me that added extra oomph to woody material. So I may add a little lower rate of triclopyr to it. In some instances, I don't mess with the rates at all. I run both of them at full label rates. So it all depends on the types of weeds I'm trying to control, the active ingredients and the herbicides I'm choosing, and what kind of return on investment I need. If I need it to burn down, quickly, then I may run a full rate of a PPOI. Like I may add Quicksilver at a full 2 ounces per acre instead of just 1 ounce per acre, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to say. I can't give you just a single answer there. The only thing I can tell you is that it's very vague, I know, in general, but it depends on the active ingredient and the specific weed I'm going after. What's going on, Tiffany? Welcome back. Best time to pull a soil test in Louisiana, 30 to 45 days after your last fertilizer application. Hey, thanks, Izzy. We had a real good Mother's Day. We did more of the no COVID zone type stuff and spent the day outside, and we just appreciated Mom all day. That's right. B-Ruck says, I have a thick and healthy turf-type tall fescue and was thinking of overseeding with GCI 100% Kentucky Bluegrass just to add some variety. Good idea, or should I stick with the turf-type tall fescue mix? That's all seasonal, right, or regional. So I can't answer that question for you. It would depend on your climate, your ability to keep up with it. Is it? I'm not gonna. It's definitely not a bad idea. Maybe if you're in like Huntsville, Alabama, or Atlanta, Georgia, or something like that, I'd probably say yes. That's probably a little silly. But if you're a little further north in the transition zone, then I'd say yeah, run with it. Why not? Just understand you're kind of dealing with you're on two different ends of the spectrum there when you're doing it. Not really two different ends of the spectrum, two different ranges of issues you can run into. Let's see here. Lambert, what's up, dude? OSU Turf fans in here too. What's up? Getting near time to put down a imidacloprid for grub preventative. Should I use a wetting agent or surfactant for the application? Thanks. I don't know of any specific research that says you need to do it. What's more important is that you do get it watered in immediately. I would say a surfactant with that makes sense. So I don't think you're going to harm anything by doing it. But by all means, yeah, you certainly can. And I don't know if I would use a wetting agent. It may run too deep. So I would probably use a surfactant. Just me trying to think logically out loud. Too early for systemic insecticide. It depends on your active ingredient, right? So if you're running a Celiprin, then by all means, have at it. You're good to go. Mr. Morton said, I've got some Pilex and methylated seed oil. What is your favorite three-way or other herbicide to mix it to wow some new sale clients? Okay, so one of my, and I got this mix from a guy up in the Northeast, Mr. Slayball. He's the nicest guy in the whole world. And Greg turned me on to this, and it was a mix of Pilex, sulfentrazone, and quinclorac. And my goodness, wow, that mix was phenomenal. It just did not really leave anything behind. It was beautiful, very beautiful mix. So I really like that to wow people. Understand that is a burn and return type of application. Burn and return application. You're going to get all kinds of funky discoloration taking place with that application. Just understand it. I have some white, some brown. The quinclorac will help with some of the whiting, kinda. And just understand it is a burn and return. But boy, oh boy, is it effective. It just said grass is booming. 2 days of solid rains to soak up the soil and push carbon X to the root system. Zapow! I've been putting down the biostem pack, but I have sections of grass that look lime in my turf type tall fescue. I noticed that the lime green grass was sections where I killed off grass before with glyphosate. I don't know. The only thing, I don't really have a whole lot of information there. My best guess is that it needs fertilizer. The biostimulant pack has no fertilizer in it. So my recommendation would be apply fertilizer. What should I add to get it green again? Oh, that's part of the same question. Yeah, fertilizer would be where I would start. Any truth to continuous excessive use of urea in cool season turf causing or exacerbating necrotic ring spot? I'm not familiar with any specific research about that. However, I do know on the flip side that using an acidifying fertilizer like ammonium sulfate has shown year over year decreased in necrotic ring spot. I don't know specifically off the top of my head if urea is actually a direct cause or it just correlates with increase in necrotic ring spot, but I do know that there is a direct cause of ammonium sulfate decreasing necrotic ring spot. Jordan said, having trouble controlling corn speed well. Been using Speed Zone. What else should I consider? Maybe a non-2,4-D product since I put down 2 apps this spring. Triclopyr and fluroxapyr. So Escalade 2, Momentum FX2, Cool Power is another one. They all work really well. But yeah, triclopyr and fluroxapyr, a combination of those two is what you want to look for. Johnny Palmer said, just threw Carbon X yesterday for my first app of the season to have X-Green on deck for the summer. How far do I wait to throw X-Green and how often throw X-Green down during the summer? I would wait till it looks like it needs fertilizer again and then throw it again. Realistically, 6 weeks, something like that. After 4 weeks, I'd say you're safe to go ahead and go ham. Yeah, I would kind of gauge it by feel, and you put down the Carbon X and you feel like you're ready to jump back into the driver's seat again, then hit you with a little X-Green. And realistically, depending on rate, if you're applying it at 3 pounds per thousand, we'll say, then, you can apply that every 2-3 weeks. If you're applying it at 5 pounds per thousand, you can apply it every 4 to 6 weeks. If you're applying at 7 to 9 pounds per thousand, then you probably stick to that every 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. Whoa! I just got jumped down here. Effective method to spread centipede sideways: prayer. Yeah, don't do anything to it. Don't mow it. Make sure if you're fertilizing it, do not put any phosphorus on it. Do not put any potassium chloride on it. Keep all caustic materials off of it. Make sure you're using an acidifying nitrogen source. Ammonium sulfate would be a great one for it. Make sure you're applying plenty of potassium in relation to nitrogen. You're going to see almost double the rate of potassium requirements for centipede than you would for comparable turf types like Bermuda grass or zoysia grass. So understand you have to stay on top of your potassium management there. And then second of all, as weird as it sounds, don't mow it. Let it get tall and then come in and cut it. Let it get really tall, then come in and cut it. It's kind of an odd thing. I talked to Ray Greendock one time about it, about some of the best my centipede ever looked was when I would let it get to 4 or 5 inches and I'd come in and I'd scalp it down to an inch. And as much as that goes against modern, sense, we were talking about how actually that's the effective way to manage centipede, because by letting it really tall like that, you're allowing it to establish a very decent root system before you come in and start getting your regular maintenance cuts on it. So in order to get it to spread, make sure your potassium game is on point. Do not use muriate of potash. Do not use any caustic potash. Make sure you're using sulfate of potash. And yeah, run with it. Stephanie, what are you doing? Stop it! How soon is too soon to add chelated iron to seedlings? Or can I put it down at the same time? By the way, that company sent the grass seed I originally ordered, so yes! Very good. You can, as soon as it's up, you're safe to go ahead and apply. Just apply at a low rate. So don't go full label rate. Maybe cut it in half, and then you can up your frequency, say like every 2 weeks, and apply it that way. You just don't want to overdo it because you can turn the grass black and interrupt photosynthesis, and then you'll interrupt the establishment period. So just keep your rate a little low to start out with. Let's see. I don't know. Is the sound choppy? If it's choppy, it's probably because I keep moving away from the microphone too far. Christian, somebody said Speed Zone Red Label and a 1/2 ounce of Pylex. There you go. Very good. Matt, Quincept, 2DQ, Q4 Plus, etc. Do you have a favorite herbicide in this category of quinclorac and 2,4-D combo? No. I always roll my own. I do not like the manufacturer's pre-blended types of products for me. I do not like it. I do not like it. David, I prefer to mix my own. I want control over my rates. I do not like Q4 Plus. 2DQ, that's fine. That's fine. I don't even know what's in Quincept, to be honest. It just, if I'm going to run that, I'm going to mix the two myself where I've got rate control over my 3-way and rate control over my quinclorac. Ben Noack said, what do humic manufacturers mean when they say their product is more bioactive than others? Who knows? I have no idea. I see that and it just, I don't know. My head just explodes because in reality, it's not a biologically active, really material. It's the byproduct of a reaction between an organic matter source and a hydroxide source, a very caustic hydroxide source. So, what makes one more bioactive than the other? That behooves all science. Because there's no amount of biological activity that's going to survive going into a bath with, something that has a pH of 1 or 2. You know what I mean? And this is something with as high as the salt content as sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, which is the main way they use to extract it. So, in my opinion, that's just a bunch of noise. What to use to lower pH? St. Augustine Lawn. Nicholas, I would probably use elemental sulfur at a low rate, like 5 pounds per thousand. repeatedly. I would also switch to ammonium sulfate as my nitrogen source. If you have the means, if you have the ability, I would use citric acid at 1 to 2 pounds per thousand, but make sure you water it in immediately after you apply it. Immediately after you apply it, you have to water it in. You cannot let that sit on the grass. What is going on over here, Kenny Cooper? What's your thoughts on using the 404 and the 0029 from Subvert to supplement Carbon X? Yeah, that's kind of the design of those products. So I put a lot of work into designing a lot of those products. I did not have anything to do with the 0029. But yeah, you can certainly run those alongside of it. Understand 0029 is going to be a foliar potassium source. So if you're looking to supplement your foliar in line, if you're running a good foliar nitrogen program and you need to get down some foliar potassium, then the 0029 would be good. The question is I have no idea when that's coming in. The guys at Subvert are not manufacturing that. Someone else is manufacturing it, and they're waiting for their shipment to be able to bottle it. And there's been no feedback yet on when that will be available. So I have no idea what to tell you on that again. Definite unnecessary! Unnecessary! And Trent, what are you doing? What's your over-under on Joey Freshwater leaving Ole Miss before 3 years? He's going to stick it out! I hope he does. I hope Lane sticks it out and makes Ole Miss great again. That's my thoughts. John Falcon, is it time for roll call? We've been there, done that. What's a good herbicide for Bermuda grass? There's tons of them. What kind of weeds are you trying to control? Kevin, I need more information. What's up, Gravy? Best way to knock my lawn out of fungicide-induced regulation. Time. I don't really have any answer for you other than time. You might want to try to apply a little bit of gibberellic acid or something of the sort, but you could create way more problems than you end up solving. Oh, what are you doing? Sean! Stop it. This is not OnlyFans. That would make me sweat and cottonmouth all at the same time. Golly. Where am I? Just give it time, Gravy. Just give it time. Scott Newman said, when using the climate appraisal form, P2O5 is 43% P and K2O is 83% K. What percentage can we use for N? I'm assuming definitely! Stop it. So that's not you don't use a percentage for N because that's how it's given to you, because when you're looking at pounds of actual nitrogen, that's how it's reported on the bag, right? So urea, for instance, is 46% nitrogen. When you're looking at a bag that is a 13-13-13, they report it as P2O5 or they report it as K2O. They don't put it on there as actual phosphorus. They put it as available phosphorus because the P2O5 would be the conversion for what is actually available phosphorus out of that bag, right? So, because the P2O5 is that's the available phosphorus. So you have to, when you're making your conversions between your soil tests, if it says you need a certain, amount of actual P applied, you have to convert that over to P2O5. Like when you're using the climate appraisal form, convert the amount of P required to P2O5. If that makes sense, right? Right. So you'd multiply times, whatever to get that number. Same with your K2O. John Falcon said, why are you always looking off to the side when you talk to us? Can't stand looking at the audience. That's funny, John. You are hilarious. My camera is right here, and then I've got the chat window right here. And so I'm looking at the chat window a lot of the times. And while I'm talking, answering the questions, I'm usually looking ahead at the questions. So in the back of my brain, I can be mentally prepared. Or if somebody says something horrific, I can make sure I'm safe to go ahead and skip over it. That's why I do that. Not because I can't stand looking at the audience, John. You angry, ornery old man. B-Ruck said, I am servicing some of my neighbors' lawns in my new construction neighborhood, and they love my turf. How would you pitch the idea of getting people to spend the money on quality products like yours? I mean, that's pretty easy. The way I typically do that is, I mean, I don't like to give sales pitches right here in the middle of the YouTube. I'm sorry, B-Ruck, I'm really not. But I will come at it from the standpoint that, unlike the majority of the competitors that are going to be out there in the field, the way I approach turf management or even lawn care is focusing on the three aspects of it. One, supplying adequate NP and K for actual turf performance, right? So adequate growth, making sure it has everything it needs from a physiological agronomic standpoint in order to succeed. I also apply something to focus on the soil structure and the soil tilth, that being the biochar portion of it, the organic material, and then also something to physically manipulate the plant by biologically stimulating it using a biostimulant, and we include the root hair promoting peptide in the product for that reason. So you're focusing on the three aspects: the top growth and health function of it, the soil function of it, and then the direct stimulant of the root system function. That's how I would market it. What are you doing, Daniel? What are you doing? Stop it. It's my nerves. Actually, they're moving this direction. All right, where am I? When we talk about the max amount of subverted 2 gallons per acre, is that across the entire line, or does it depend on the product? It depends on the products. This is one of those nights where I thank y'all so much. Seriously, we do not have to do this. Thank you. I'm just talking about D10, D10 Plus, or the 404 in that instance. The other products, you're going to see much higher recommended rates on the product because there's a much smaller concentration of amino acids in that product. There we go. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that, sir. Brett Finkel said, had a few questions last week I was going to ask. Might have been some past episodes and got them all answered. You're very welcome, sir. You're very welcome. Matt, did you apply CRRP to your chest? Seems like a lot of top growth. No, I did not. That's just I'm naturally blessed to have very high testosterone levels, apparently. I think that's why my hair is falling out at the rate it is, too. I mean, it is just chunking out every year that passes. Every time my wife cuts my hair, she's like, whoa, we need to be concerned. Let's see. Matt Martinez, your products help my comment, but cutting it at 0.5 keeps stressing it out. Best products to fill, kill off, and seed with Arden 15. Okay, so this is the problem with common, is maintaining common at 0.5 is really hard. I had to raise my height of cut on common to 0.75 because I never could get it looking right at 0.5. Not with the soil structure that I have. If I had more of a sand-based soil, I could make it happen. But when you're dealing with the bulk density of the soil that we're dealing with here, the compaction of the soil, and the infiltration rates of the soil we have here, perk rates of the soil we have, it just ain't going to happen. I had to raise my height of cut. If you want to do a full kill-off, it's pretty easy. Glyphosate and probably add some fluazepop to it. Again, you're looking at probably 3+ applications to get a full kill before you can see with your Arden 15. Low manganese, magnesium, zinc, high copper, boron, iron, phosphorus, calcium, St. Augustine, Central Florida. Had constant issues with fungus. Seaweed kelp is helping. What might be going on? I mean, there's lots of things. So if you're high in calcium, immediately what I'm thinking, and this is just thinking out loud with what I see here, is you have a high pH. St. Augustine is going to do better in lower pH situations. If you're low in manganese, I don't know, man. That's not a lot of information. I need to know your soil pH and what specific diseases are you working with. Seaweed kelp may be helping, but is it really fixing the underlying issue, or is it just hormonally stimulating away the problem temporarily? Is kind of my idea there. So more than likely, what I'd be looking at is one, if I'm dealing with high phosphorus, just understand you're always going to be dealing with high phosphorus. Because you have high phosphorus, understand a lot of things like your iron are not going to be available. If you have high calcium, chances are your iron is not going to be available. So what I would be focusing on is an acidifying nitrogen source like ammonium sulfate and plenty of potassium. Again, plenty of potassium. Matt, any tips on getting and keeping clay soil moist? Yeah. If you're having trouble with it, applying a wetting agent, that's where you hear people shampooing the yard and all that fun stuff. That's a perfect way to do it. And yeah, that'll work. That'll work fine. Trent Burns said, if I go full throttle on a wicked plant, do I mix in some X-Oil for the carbon? What about humic acid and RGS? Is that Lagniappe or a waste of money? It just depends. So it's going to be two totally different things. If you can totally apply some X-Oil. If you want to put the lawn kind of on autopilot, you can go in with a good X-Oil app, because even greens programs that may be on a primarily liquid program still apply a lot, not a lot, but do apply granular to keep things bumping and thumping, moving through the time period. So what you totally could do is, kickstart your season with a high rate of something like X Green or X Soil, something like that, and then come in behind that with your foliar program, if that makes sense. Seaweed is helping my drought stress. Yeah, that makes sense. So seaweed is going to have naturally a lot of auxins and gibberellins, and so that will help fight. It'll kick in some biotic and abiotic stress defense and help against some of those issues. What's going on, Turf Therapy? How are you, good sir? Super TA, does Carbon Earth offer a good organic fert for the hot summer months? The closest thing we would have to be considered organic, we just don't certify it organic because of the cost, would be X-Oil would be one you do. You could top dress with that material in the summer months. It's not a traditional fertilizer, so to speak. But normally what we recommend for summer would be applications of X-Green, the 818. Oh, look, John right there said X-Green would be the recommendation. Sean Smith said, is Pylex like my mix Milo and Roundup? It burns. That's funny. Oh, man. What are your thoughts on watering with softened water? Do not do it. Do not do it. Yeah. This is water with a lot of salt in it. You would definitely make sodic soil. Do not do that. Carlos said, what's up, Matt? Is there a limit on how much lime can be put down at once? My soil pH is 4.1, and I'm worried I can't use ferts for a year or longer. Yeah, you are kind of limited there. I would say 50 to 75 pounds. If you can aerate really, really, really well to the point of almost tilling the yard, then you can go at higher rates and try and work it in among the depth of the yard. So I would say 75 to 100 pounds if you can aerate that in really well, where literally you do not miss an area of your lawn that is plugged. I'm not talking about 4 inches. You got a plug here and a plug there. I'm talking about you got a plug here and you got another plug right beside it. You're going to have to plug it 8 different directions. I'm talking. Because what can happen is, 1, you can kind of crust the layer, and then 2, you would inhibit the fertilizer you would apply from that high of an application rate. It would cause issues with the rest of the fertilizer you apply for the course of the year. When I hear burn and return, it reminds me of Alan's college nickname. That's John. You're off your A game tonight, sir. Where's that? How in the hell do I get rid of ryegrass that's mixed with my Bermuda? I live in Southern California where it gets 115 during the summer. Revolver does great. Revolver's a great product for that. Trifloxysulfuron Monument does a great job for that. Andy Kelly said, I have some Subvert Go Time on the way. I spoke with Roger. He said it's designed for bentgrass. Should I be okay putting it on my cool season mix? Yeah, you'd be fine. Meebs Mowing Lawn Service. Are you still uploading the drive home to podcast? Yeah, I've just run out of time. We got a lot of projects going on at my real job, which is Carbon Earth. I volunteer my time for the drive home, so I still do the show every day. I just haven't been uploading the podcast because I don't have time to do it, unfortunately. If anybody wants to do that, let me know, and by all means, you can. Unfortunately, I can't offer you any money because I don't get paid to do that gig either. Terry Finch, got a few small bare spots in my centipede from last year's disease damage. Okay, should I let it get tall in those spots mowed at 2.5 inches weekly? Yep, absolutely. Let it go. Let it get way on up there. Any tips on how to properly mist the air? That was a good one, John. That was a good one. Is tenacity the consensus to get rid of creeping bentgrass in cool season? Yes, for the most part. The one I'm aware of is tenacity. Willie Lombos, glyphosate can limit manganese uptake. There you go. I don't know who's applying manganese, and I mean, is applying glyphosate and still trying to get manganese uptake. Oh, he's talking about out there where the guy was doing that. I see. Is there a tan line on your neck each time you take a drink? Yeah, I'm sure there is. I worked outside in the yard all weekend, and I got a little sunburn on the top of my head. All right, let me move this back over here. Where am I? When do the seed heads on Kentucky bluegrass, turf-tight tall fescue, and rye leave? As soon as you start really moving into the heat, that's going to go away. Also just did an app of imidacloprid, bifenthrin, and RGS. Am I good timing for this or to control grubs and mosquitoes? RGS isn't going to do anything for grubs and mosquitoes. Bifenthrin will, and if you're seeing mosquito activity, then it's a good time for it. Imidacloprid, you're still a little early for grubs. Typically, that's going to be done in June. I had better luck running it later. The further south you go, if you're still up north, then you may be good with just June. Thoughts on high potassium for last application in cool season lawns of snow mold? Yeah, I'm very familiar with that, and Doug Soldat's research on that, Greg Aspen, so no, I don't think it's necessary, and because you have to think about it from this standpoint. Nitrogen utilization in the plant is going to dictate the uptake of P and K, right? So you can apply nitrogen in the fall, expecting an early green up, and you may still get a color response from it, but you're not really getting any upwardly growth out of it. So you're not growing any nutrients out of the plant, because when it's growing upright, you're cutting it upright and cutting it, you're growing out those nutrients. You're burning through those. You're churning through those nutrients faster. So if you're not getting any upward growth as a response from your nitrogen application, then you're not really moving a lot of potassium out of the plant anyway. So there's not really any reason to be applying it to go along with it. Now, what you have to understand is that when that nitrogen release really does start to catch up next spring, you've got to make sure at that time next spring, you've got plenty of potassium to combat the nitrogen utilization that's going to take place from your fall application. Eric Ellis said, fungicide resistance and how it's best to run two modes of actions. I have stumbled across a product called Strobe Pro. It has azoxystrobin and propaganazole as AI. Can I run this all year? Yes, you can. Probably what I would do is add another product to it as part of your rotation. Rotating fungicides was kind of the old methodology. Now the idea is combining the different modes of actions. So if you wanted to add another one to that, adding something like Cleary's 3336 alongside that would be a way to attack it from three different ways. Here. How can you release locked up iron in the soil? I've been using humic acid for 2 years and iron is off the charts. pH 6. Eric, dropping your pH to like a 5 and making sure you're not ever applying any. You would want to target something like ammonium sulfate with plenty of sulfate in it, right? Because there's a correlation there between higher iron utilization. So, yeah, just one, make sure you're not applying it at all. 2, drop your pH critically low, and you'll be good to go. That's really it. There's not really any other way I can do that. Yeah, there's not any other real way to drop it. Also, bag your clippings. Robert Butler. Hey, Matt, I'm super low in K. How many pounds per 1,000 of actual K can be applied safely at one time? If you're using SOP, you can apply a pound of K at one time, and you'll be fine. J-Man says, sometimes I want to move to Florida just so I can grow my grass year-round. All right, let's see. Thanks a ton, Matt. Yes, my pH was on the high side at 6.9. Applied a lot of peat moss to try and lower it. Brown patch and take all root rot were the main issues. Yeah, so with brown patch, with take all root rot being one of your main issues, manganese is going to be an important one. There's a correlation there between manganese and take all root rot. If I remember correctly, you were low in manganese. So ammonium sulfate, manganese sulfate, or chelated manganese would be good ones alongside what you're doing with your peat moss and other things too. Best thing to spray outside to keep my ants away. I live near woods, and this time of year they come in the house no matter what I do for about 3 weeks. Man, I have no idea. Pest control is not my thing at all. James said, looking at a new customer with mature oak trees. Difficult to get grass to grow. Need some advice to getting it to grow. If you've got mature oak trees, you'll never get it to grow. That's just the reality of the situation. The turf is never going to be able to compete with the tree. Certain instances, certain oak species do, like white oaks and pin oaks, are allelopathic, meaning they're actually going to emit a chemical similar to like juglone that would poison the turf. So unfortunately, you're just not ever going to get it to work. Applied Carbonex this evening. It's supposed to rain for the next 4 days. Excited to see the difference. Should be good to go. If you ever need a test lawn. Asami throwing the dabs. What are you doing, Asami? Where did you find the dab? Oh, that's an elbow cough. I thought it was a dab. That's the best. I love that. I love that. Wait, it shrunk my screen though. How do I get this back? Let me try this. Let me restore it here. That is a riot. What happened to his hair? Everybody's going on my hair now. Here we go. Here we go. The new X Green looks like brown sand. Just opened the mix and was surprised at the difference. Brian, can you send me a picture of that? That does not sound... Oh, my battery died. My battery died. Will you send me a picture of that material? I just want to double check it because brown sand doesn't necessarily sound right. It should be small and fine and similar to sand and structure, but it should be good to go. Hang on, I'm replacing the battery on my camera. Let me do this. Should be back. Should be back a little bit. Let me zoom in. Fix my zoom. Are we good? Focus. There it is. Hey, we're back. We're back. Dab on it. Yeah, Brian, send me a picture of that, thegrassfactor@gmail.com, and I'll take a look at it. Oh, boys, planting seeds again. Here we go. What's your thoughts on Miracle-Gro lawn fertilizer? Man, I have no idea what's in it. It all depends on what's the contents of it, not the brand. I do not know brands at all. Will 2 pounds per 1,000 of K at one time burn? I know you need 4 pounds per 1,000 within range, but you have to remember your plant is only going to take up what you apply in terms of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. So if you apply 1 pound of actual nitrogen, your plant is only requiring a half pound of actual K. So if while you're applying 1 pound of actual nitrogen, you apply 1 pound of actual potassium, you are applying a surplus of about a half pound of potassium that will go towards your deficient potassium. Does that make sense? So there's no reason to apply 2 pounds per 1,000 at one time. You're not going to see any difference. Just apply a pound. That's really all you need. And that's assuming you're applying like a pound of actual nitrogen. Just run it 1-to-1 with whatever your nitrogen rate is. So if you're applying a half pound of nitrogen, apply a half pound of K. And eventually you're going to get there if you continue to do that. You don't have to do it all at one time. Preferred herbicide for spotted spurge. Pre-emerge did well this spring, but it keeps coming back after apply. Spurge power? I've never heard of that. Spot treatments. Aldo, I have no idea where you are. If you tell me where you are, what kind of turf type you're talking about, I could probably give you some guidance there. Best product to get rid of annual rye and quackgrass in fescue Kentucky bluegrass lawn. For annual rye, there's not really anything you can do except let it die. For quackgrass, your best guess, mind you, this is a guess. This is not a surefire thing, but a combination of something like Acclaim, Tenacity might get it. I wouldn't be able to guarantee it, but that would be your best bet. According to soil tests, I have 311 pounds per acre of potassium. They say that is very high. I always struggle with heat stress. Would Stress X be applicable with such very high K? No. Stress X would not be a good fit for you. If you pulled the soil test and you were low in potassium, Stress X would be a good product for you. But because you are already adequate in potassium, unnecessary, I wouldn't even consider it. If you're dealing with heat stress, I would try and focus more on things that are going to manage moisture levels in the soil. Scott Ohms said, what's your preferred fungus control for dollar and brown patch control in turf type tall fescue? So completely different approaches here. For dollar spot, you're going to want to use a very specific dollar spot type of fungicide like Zemplar. For brown patch, then you're going to want to use a strobilurin, probably combined with the DMI, something like azoxystrobin combined with propiconazole are my favorite. In Southern California, quite hot, 110 degrees. Bermuda. Sure. Oh, wait, no. What is it? Surge. The product is called Surge. Surge. Surge would be a fine one for it. You could also do Celsius will take out spotted spurge. Metsulfuron methyl will control spotted spurge all well. I see you there. I see you, baby. 200 square foot of Bermuda in South Carolina. It's got crabgrass, fescue, clover, and plantain in it. If you do not have crabgrass in it, guarantee you. Don't want to spend $200 on Celsius or something like that for 200 square feet of turf. Any idea? No. Man, unfortunately, I do not, David. I've got no answers for you, sir. Eric Hughes says, I'm using Speed Zone for Creeping Charlie with not good results. Any idea what may be available? Look, OSU got it right there. Triclopyr plus fluroxypyr. Everybody, guess what? We have made it to the end of the chat. It only took the whole show. It only took an hour and 10 minutes, but we made it. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in tonight. It means the absolute world to me. I will be back next Sunday at 9 p.m. Feel free during the course of the week to check out turfsupradio.com. Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Tune in. I do this every day for 2 hours. How wow! David said, I promise you, he has crabgrass. Crabgrass is barely up right now, so it would be difficult to see. Chances are what you're looking at is more than likely Dallas grass, if I had to guess. Crabgrass is probably coming, but chances are you're dealing with Dallas grass. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I love each and every one of y'all. See y'all next week.